Good evening, herzlich willkommen. Mein Name ist Stefanie Schüppach, ich bin stellvertretende Leiterin des Politforums Bern. A very warm welcome to Lizzie Doron as well and Naomi Lubrich. I'm very happy that you could both be here tonight. I'm looking forward to the discussion with you. We are here in a very old tower. It was built in the 13th century and then it was completely rebuilt in the 17th century. And it used to be a watchtower and a prison. When you came in, you saw also pictures of prisons in Switzerland nowadays. But the tower itself is not a prison anymore, but it's an open space for political debates and discussions. Die Veranstaltung heute wird hauptsächlich auf Englisch sein. Wer möchte, kann sich hinten ein Headset nehmen und wir haben eine Übersetzung ins Deutsche. Am Schluss, wenn Sie Fragen stellen, können Sie die auf Deutsch stellen oder Englisch. Das spielt keine Rolle. Ein Kernelement des Politforums und der Demokratie überhaupt sind politische Diskussionen und Debatten. Wer hier ist, interessiert sich für unterschiedliche Sichtweisen, ist bereit zuzuhören, abzuwägen und auch eigene Argumente einzubringen. Dieser Austausch setzt immer Anstand und Respekt gegen anderen voraus. Anstand und Respekt sind auch wesentliche Elemente unserer direkten Demokratie und wir müssen diese achten. Wir haben bei unseren Veranstaltungen gemerkt, dass die Gäste, die wir hier empfangen können, das immer sehr schätzen, dass man eben hier sich zu verschiedensten politischen Themen austauschen kann. Wir möchten mit unseren Veranstaltungen und unserem Programm möglichst viele Menschen und Themen mit einbeziehen und arbeiten immer auch wieder mit Partnern zusammen. So kam auch diese heutige Veranstaltung mit Lizzie Doron aufgrund einer Anfrage der Burgergemeinde Bern von Patricia Grivelli und von Professor Oliver Lubrich von der Universität Bern zustande. Sie haben uns im Juni kontaktiert, weil die Universität Bern hat immer eine Gastprofessur, die Friedrich-Dürrenmatt-Gastprofessur, wo wir jeweils für ein Semester eine Schriftstellerin oder ein Autor, aber auch Regisseure an die Uni Bern kommen und ein Semester lang einen Vortrag oder eine Vorlesung halten. Sie wollten dann diesen Personen auch eine weitere Plattform bieten als nur an der Uni und dachten, das Politforum Bern wäre der geeignete Ort. Wir fanden das auch sehr spannend und haben das auch zur Gelegenheit genommen, für uns ein neues Format auszuprobieren, das wir heute mit Lizzie Doron, israelische Autorin, die jetzt in Bern lehrt, ausprobieren. Und zwar bieten wir Persönlichkeiten, die zu Gast sind in Bern, eine Plattform, damit sie über ihre Erfahrungen, auch mit der Schweiz, aber auch ihre Ansichten sich hier präsentieren können. Und wir machen das nicht in einer größeren Podiumsdiskussion, sondern im Gespräch zu zweit. Bevor ich nun das Wort an Naomi Lubrich und Lizzie Doron übergebe, noch kurz einen organisatorischen Hinweis. Wir zeichnen die Veranstaltung auf Video auf und es hat auch eine Fotografin vor Ort. Wir werden die Bilder und auch das Video nach der Veranstaltung auf unserer Website veröffentlichen. Also falls jemand nicht möchte, dass sein Foto veröffentlicht wird, können Sie das gerne der Fotografin sagen oder auch mir später. Nun freue ich mich sehr, das Wort an Naomi Lubrich zu übergeben. Sie ist eine große Kennerin von Lizzie Dorons Werk. Deswegen hat Lizzie auch vorgeschlagen, dass wir sie anfragen, das Gespräch mit ihr zu moderieren. Und sie ist Direktorin des Jüdischen Museums in Basel. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to introduce Lizzie Doron to this Bern audience today. Lizzie Doron was born in Tel Aviv in the founding years of the country Israel. Her mother was, like many of the inhabitants of Israel of the time, a Holocaust survivor from Poland. And Lizzie lived with her mother together in a neighborhood peopled basically by people like her and her mother, also Holocaust survivors. Their native language was Yiddish. Lizzie left home for a kibbutz in the Golan Heights at age 18. And she served, like everyone in Israel, in the defense. After that, she began a career as a researcher of linguistics, as an academic at the university. And this changed abruptly when her mother died in the year 1990. At that point, she began writing, and her first novel appeared in 1998. It was called Warum bist du nicht vor dem Krieg gekommen? Today, this novel belongs to school curricula in Israel and also in Germany, and 7 further books have followed ever since, making Lizzie Doron one of the most popular writers, especially in Germany, where she has up to 100 events a year in front of audiences and in places like these. Today, our topic is going to be the 2 latest books by Lizzie Doron. Let me show them. Who the Fuck is Kafka? And Sweet Occupation. With these 2 books, for the first time, the Holocaust is not the main topic, but a conflict, namely the conflict between Palestinians and Jews in Israel. And that brings me right to my first question to you, Lizzie. You live between various worlds. You live in Tel Aviv. You also spend half the year in Berlin. These are pulsating cities, tourist attractions, and now you have been in Bern for the past 2.5 months. Tell us about your first impressions of Switzerland.
Wow, good evening. This is a very difficult question. I can talk about Holocaust and Palestinians. First of all, I have a very intimate and close relation with Switzerland. Our best friends are in Zurich. And we spent from, I think, 80s, all the holidays and all the vacations with the friends in Zurich. So I have the obsession to cheese and to buy in Migros, especially the pajamas, which I have a collection of all the pajamas, all the colors, and mainly on sales, which they have really very often. And I like the train because most of the time they are really on time, but when they are not, I like the people around me because they look like Israeli. 1 minute like, it can be. And they are talking to themselves, and I think that just an outsider can see the rage and the restless people. And for me, it's, it's a matter of everyday life, because in Israel, we have a lot of reason to look at the watch and say, it's not what we meant. And other thing which is really amazing, I think, is all those climate change, which I appreciate very much your attitudes, but I'm not on the days that I can throw out the garbage. I'm leaving on Wednesday afternoon, so I have a problem. So I go with a bag and I throw in every public garbage can, and I'm afraid that the police will catch me. So it's amazing that you are well established with your norms and behavior, and it's really interesting to be an outsider in Switzerland because it's very easy to manage and everything is in Ordnung and on time. But I must tell you something. I am a lover of people, and I live in a building which I believe that my neighbors are ghosts. I saw no one. I still take the laundry to Tel Aviv or to Berlin because somebody has the key of the laundry room, but I have no clue who is this guy. And anyhow, nobody is at home. And I have a habit. I like to stand at the windows and look at my neighbors. And that's interesting because you have huge windows and there is light, but you have these light curtains, which I see just shadows. And they are moving from one side to another side. Nobody is leaving home. I'm leaving my apartment very early in the morning to the train station. And I and one neighbor with a dog, we are the only people that are real people in the street. everybody is going to sleep very early. And you know, I'm ashamed not to turn off the light because for me, midnight is an early hour. And it's a matter probably of, I think, weather, because we in Israel have a warm weather. We are outside every evening. And here I'm standing just to see the faces of my neighbor. I have time till 20th of December. Maybe I will meet someone. And something about my students. I'm teaching a lot. I must say that I have to appreciate my students. They are always on time. Nobody is missing. In Israel, we are sick a lot. The bus is not arriving on the time. They just forgot that this is the day and this is the hour of the seminar. And they like to talk with each other more than listening to the professor. It's interesting to sing in the class, in a silent class. Everybody is looking at me. They don't move. I was sure that they are installations. It's not real people. And in the third lesson, I brought from Israel a very tasty chewing gum, and I told them, please, in my lesson, you have to eat the chewing gum. I want to see that your muscles in the face can move. So all of them were sitting like this with the punishment of the chewing gum. I try to bring flavors and taste from Israel because basically it's totally different, most of the food. And two interesting experience. One of the favorite snake in Israel, maybe you know, it's halva. It's sesame with a lot of sugar. I brought the halva to the class, and I felt that it was a disaster for them. They are probably, they are used to a very smoothie chocolate, and this is something like a glue, and they couldn't just throw it out. So I felt that they are looking in the mouth for hiding places and to throw it at the end of the lesson. What was a very interesting change and a trigger point, as far as I can tell, there is a very popular snake in Israel, bamba. It's for babies. It's very tasty. It's salty. It's like, how can I say, what is it? You know,
it's a little bit
somebody
like
ate bamba.
It's a little bit peanutty, right? Peanutty?
It's like peanut butter, but I don't know to explain. But even the name makes a kind of a very friendly feeling, bamba. And they loved it so much, they asked for more. And this was the first time that I saw that for a moment I was with them in a kindergarten, because they want more, and they said, Dad, this is good. You have one left. You have in your, it's a small package. There is a left, and it was very funny. And I think that it was a change in our relation. But I feel that, in a way, maybe it's also my prejudice. Maybe it's my also biography and history. I feel that I have to deliver a message, and from time to time, I feel that I'm a bit aggressive. I must tell you something. 2 weeks ago, we have a kleine war in Israel. So I put the mobile phone on the table, and you know that every Israeli has an application of a siren, just in case that there will be a siren and you should go to the shelter in a few minutes. And I left my phone open, and they experienced 3 sirens in the lesson. And I saw the reaction. we, the people from Israel, me as a professor, I came with a different budget. And it's interesting because I appreciate the tolerance to listen. I don't know how much they can get, because even though we are from the Western world in a way, I think that the Swiss people are living in a paradise. And you know, the name of my seminar is Breaking the Walls. It's not easy to break the walls. Even in Israel, I have to use the hammer and break walls. But I told them that I feel that in their case, it's different. I have to break a diamond wall. They are living in a paradise in a way. And maybe they have a good reason not to let me break the walls. Wow, this was a speech. I hope my students are not here.
Thank you very, very much for it. It's actually very interesting always to see the perspective from outside, from a functioning state to state and statelessness. That's one of the topics of this book, Who the Fuck is Kafka? It is a book about a Palestinian filmmaker and an Israeli writer who meet each other at a peace congress in Rome, in Italy. They're supposed to speak at a panel together, and they meet at this panel and realize that the other is a very, very good storyteller. Both are very good storytellers, and with their stories about the way they live, one on the Palestinian side and the other on the Jewish sides, they realize that they keep on swaying the audience in one direction and in the other direction. And one of the stories that I found most moving in this book is after the panel at this peace congress, one of the panels at this peace congress, the two protagonists, Nadim and the novelist, are in a restaurant in Italy. They're eating together. The waiter approaches and tries to make conversation with them. And what happens thereafter is, for me, one of a very, very strong passage in this that tells us a lot about statelessness in both sides of the conflict. Woher sind Sie, wollte wissen. This is the waiter, der Kellner. Aus Jerusalem, antwortete Nadim. Oh, Jerusalem, sagte der Kellner erregt. Diesen Ort liebe ich mehr als alles auf der Welt. Schade, dass Sie sich dort bekämpfen. Ich glaube, Sie sollten alle zum Christentum übertreten, verkündete der Kellner, als er uns die Speisekarten reichte. Nadim und ich wechselten einen schnellen Blick. Schließlich war Jesus Jude und es gibt nur einen Gott. Ihm war der Stolz auf die großartige Lösung anzusehen, die er für die Probleme des Nahen Ostens gefunden hatte. Die Idee ist nicht schlecht, aber er ist Muslim, sagte ich zu dem Kellner, dessen Vorschlag mich aus den Gedanken an Daphna gerissen hatte. Er ließ sich nicht beirren. Egal wer oder was, wenn alle Christen werden. Der Papst wird unser Vater sein und Jesus wird uns retten und keiner wird mehr den anderen umbringen. Er freute sich, seine Vision vom jüngsten Tag mit uns zu teilen. Ich sah, dass Nadim sich kaum beherrschen konnte, sein Bauch zitterte vor unterdrücktem Lachen. Das wäre wirklich eine hervorragende Lösung, sagte ich höflich. Dann wandte ich mich an Nadim. Für Dani und mich wäre es ein Problem, weil wir keinen Gott haben. Aber würden Sie, Laila und Sie zustimmen? Ich wäre einverstanden, antwortete Nadim. Fangen wir an mit der Revolution. Schließlich hat Maria gesagt, von hier werde die Botschaft ausgehen. Jetzt brach sich das Lachen Bahn. Er brachte gerade noch den Satz heraus. Der eifrige Kellner fuhr fort, uns überzeugen zu wollen. Er erklärte, wir müssten uns dazu nur taufen lassen. Er breitete seine Lehre vor uns aus und wir lachten, bis uns die Tränen kamen, bis Maria zu uns trat, sein Geplapper unterbrach und sagte, sie benötige unsere Pässe. Was? Fragte Nadim. Er sah erschrocken aus. Maria erklärte, wir würden aus Sicherheitsgründen darum gebeten, unsere Pässe im Hotelsafe aufzubewahren. Ich reichte ihr meinen Pass. Nadim jedoch erstarrte. Reglos saß er da. Dann sagte er, er könne nur eine Kopie im Safe hinterlegen. Das Originaldokument müsse er behalten. Maria erklärte, es handele sich um Sicherheitsanweisungen, die für alle gelten. Nadim hob sein Hemd und zeigte uns, dass das Dokument an seinem Körper befestigt war. Er hatte es sich mit Isolierband auf die Haut geklebt. Einen Sprengstoffgürtel, versuchte ich, mein Erstaunen zu überspielen. So etwas Ähnliches, murmelte er. Was ist das? Fragte Maria verblüfft. Das ist ein Passierschein, den mir der Staat Israel zugestanden hat. Und obwohl er nicht das große Los ist, darf ich ihn nicht verlieren. Er erklärte Maria und mir, dass er im Fall eines Verlusts oder eines Diebstahls als stateless gelte und dann vom Staat Israel nach Jordanien geschickt werde. Jordanien wird mich nach Israel zurückschicken und ich werde bestenfalls einen palästinensischen Pass bekommen und mein Haus in Jerusalem nur noch von den Höhlen Schomroms aussehen. Ich gehe kein Risiko ein. Von diesem Ausweis werde ich mich nicht trennen. Sie können eine Kopie davon machen, aber das Original bleibt bei mir. Maria und Nadim gingen zusammen zum Büro, um diese Angelegenheit zu regeln. Ich blieb bestürzt sitzen. »Was ist das für eine Geschichte?« fragte ich, als er zurückkam. Er hielt mir den Passierschein hin. »Das ist die Geschichte. Name: Nadim Aboueni. Nationalität: Araber. Religion: Muslim. Staatsangehörigkeit: Jordanisch. Dieser Ausweis wurde vom Innenministerium des Staates Israel ausgestellt.« »Also wer sind Sie?« fragte ich. »Das frage ich mich auch«, antwortete er, und auf seinem Gesicht erschien wieder sein Lächeln, das mich noch mehr verwirrte. Ich erinnerte mich an den Tag, als ich mit meinem ersten Personalausweis nach Hause kam. Meine Mutter saß in der Küche und hörte Radio. Ich legte das Dokument wie beiläufig auf den Tisch. Sie stand auf, nahm es in Augenschein und verlangte, ich solle es in meine Tasche stecken. »Setz dich«, befahl sie mir und zog ihren eigenen, in einem Etui neben einem weiteren rosafarbenen Dokument steckenden Personalausweis aus der Tasche. »Das ist der Ausweis, den ich nach dem Krieg bekommen habe«, sagte sie. »Und jetzt hör mir gut zu.« Ich begriff, dass sie etwas über sich selbst sagen würde und erschrak. Ich wollte, dass sie jetzt wieder Radio hörte. Ich wollte, dass sie wieder schwieg. 16 Jahre lang hatte sie geschwiegen. Warum wollte sie jetzt über Vergangenes sprechen? Ich floh in mein Zimmer und warf die Tür hinter mir zu. Sie stand noch lange hinter der Tür. Sie redete, aber ich hielt mir die Ohren zu. Nadim befestigte den Ausweis wieder an seinem Körper zwischen Brust und Hüfte. »Auf der linken Seite nahe dem Herzen«, sagte er und versuchte zu lächeln. Ich schaute ihn hilflos an. »Was ist passiert?« fragte Nadim, als er sah, dass ich den Tränen nahe war. »Er könne mit allen möglichen Tabletten dienen«, sagte er. Ich versuchte zu lächeln, aber die Tränen waren da. »Palästinenser sind an Tränen gewöhnt«, sagte er. »Ehrlich gesagt, wir auch«, entgegnete ich und bat ihn um Verständnis, dass ich mich zurückziehen wollte. Ich ging in mein Zimmer, warf mich aufs Bett und schloss die Augen. »Es tut mir leid«, hatte die Schwester im Krankenhaus gesagt, als sie mir die Handtasche meiner Mutter aushändigte. In der Tasche befanden sich ihre Perlenkette, ihr Ehering, die Hausschlüssel und 3 Ausweise. Ein Mitgliedsausweis vom Bund des Friedens. Dieser Bund hatte bereits während der Mandatszeit versucht, einen Weg zu finden, um das gemeinsame Leben von Juden und Arabern in Eretz Israel zu ermöglichen. Und 2 Ausweise, der blaue israelische und ein rosafarbener. An jenem Tag betrachte ich den rosafarbenen Ausweis zum ersten Mal. Name: Helena Hochdorf. Volkszugehörigkeit: jüdisch. Staatsangehörigkeit: Staatenlos. Ausstellende Behörde, UNRRA, United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. Lizzie, in this passage, which I can't help but always gives me goosebumps, we see two people who are on different sides of a great chasm in Israel, and at the same time, they have two very, very similar experiences of not belonging, of being in a place without citizenship.
It's a bit different, I must say, because for Nadim, as he told me, and as far as I know, he's for 10 generations in the same place, East Jerusalem. It's a very well-known quarter to the Israelis as Silwan, because there are a lot of clashes there. The problem that Nadim has, that he has no independence, country, land, government is under occupation. But he has no doubt about his identity and about the place he belongs to. And I think, it's interesting, Palestinian and Israelis are always fight who is the real victim, who suffers more. And we like to win. Each one want to be a winner. So I introduce my story as the difficult one, because for me, I don't have a final identity in a way, because first of all, I grew up in a neighborhood that nobody was Israeli. For them, it was a refugee camp. They came after the Second World War. They came to a land, a weather, food, light, which was really strange for them. They were afraid from outsiders. So they lived together, 100 families, all of them Holocaust survivors. They spoke all those diaspora languages, Polish, Romanian, Czech, Yiddish. Most of them had tattoo numbers on their hand. Most of them were talking about a different place in the world, which for us, the children that were born in Israel, was a kind of a secret. We were not allowed to know a lot about the Europe experience of our family. I can also touch the issue of food. For Nadim, the food in Israel is the only food he tasted as a child, and it's his mother and grandfather dish. For me, I grew up in Israel, and whenever my mom had enough money, she cooked a Wiener Schnitzel, Kartoffel mit Sahne und Kraut, and for dessert or for birthday party, whenever she wanted to show me that she did something special, it was a strudel mit Vanillesoßen. So I grew up with a broken identity, because Israel then, I'm talking mid-50s, was a very strong place for the young generation. Israel offered a dream to be strong, to be different, to erase, to delete the history of the weak people that came from the concentration camp and from the diaspora. And I grew up in a duality, because my mom wanted to implant in me her tradition, her story, her language. And I want to run away to accept the Israeli story, dream, and values. What was really interesting, that she looked for a kind of an exit to go back to her place. So during the nights, when silence was all over, she walked in our small apartment, two-room apartments, reading out loud Goethe, Schiller, talking to herself in German language, the language she longed, her mother tongue. And what was really striking that I couldn't sleep well. I heard those voices of her. Um, there were nights when she shouted, when she cried, but mostly she read out poems and stories. But in the morning, when I was on my way to school, she stopped me at the door and she said, "Listen, Lizzie, my history and my mother tongue is a secret. You are not allowed to speak German in Israel. People can die. This language can kill people." By the way, it was not allowed to speak German language in the streets of Israel till mid-60s. And I knew that something is wrong. I'm not really Israeli, but I have no other Heimat. I don't have another place in the world. This world was destroyed. This world was a trauma that nobody was really ready to talk about. So I think that as a child, I made up my mind and I had a very clear choice. I choose Israel as my homeland. And I escaped. I left home. I ran away to be a soldier. I was a very brave one, and I was a shepherdess. I had sheep. I was in the Golan Heights near the border. I was a wonderful sniper. I have a huge gun. I shoot quite well. But I knew that there is another world somewhere. And when I became a mother, and when my daughter wanted to know the story and the history of my family, and in Israel there were many, many changes which I couldn't really accept. I couldn't really get the idea of being strong, fighting for our freedom, occupying the others. So I had a lot of questions about my Israeli identity, and then I tried to look for an alternative. And I found that the stories, the hidden stories, and the history of my mom is very relevant in my life. And when I had to tell the stories to my daughter about my biography, I found that the past, the history, and the influence of my mom was crucial. And I think that my story, in a way, tells that at the end, or not in the end, I hope I have a few years more to live, but we moved to Berlin. And I live now in European mentality much more than in the Israeli one. And after I was involved with the Palestinian story, I was in a way kicked out from the Israeli consensus, and they don't publish my books anymore. So even though I cannot speak or write in German language, I became a German writer. And I just write my books in Hebrew, but later on I cannot read them because my editor and my translator make a lot of changes and my readers are German. So it's an ongoing story which I feel restless and stateless in a way. And one day I was so crazy because I wanted to go to visit my Palestinian friends, and I'm not allowed. I have just an Israeli passport and I cannot cross the border to the West Bank. And I felt that I have to share it with someone. So I sent a letter to the German ambassador in Israel, and I said, dear whatever, I am an Israeli, but I am a German writer, and I deal with very important issues with Palestinians, and I write books about the Palestinians under occupation. And if I may, can I ask for having a German passport? And I got a wonderful answer. We adore your books. We read all of them. We looked for a law or bylaw to help you to get a German passport, but we couldn't find. Wish you luck. And don't cross the border. We all know that it's dangerous. So it's really, I don't go to the whole details and all stories, but it's when you have a broken identity in a restless place, you became much more restless, and you need to find out who you are in a way. And I'm still on a search in a way. And I found myself more and more digging in the past and in the history. By the way, I give long answers.
Very good. We love them.
Because this is connected to the Swiss people. One of the research that one of the readers decided to do as a gesture because he liked my books, so he digged and searched for my past. And then I got a document that originally my family came from Lucerne. And they were deer hunters. And they did it really well. Because they wanted the horn. In the Jewish tradition for the shofar, you need the horn. But most of the horn are not suitable because of religious issues, which I am not aware. And they wanted to earn money. So they decided to take the jar of the horn for beer. And there still is Hochdorf beer. Hochdorf is my mother's last name. And then they killed so many deers, so the mayor, whatever, someone from Lucerne, asked them to leave the area. You had a deep understanding of climate change, and you wanted to keep the balance in nature. So my family had to leave Lucerne. They moved to a place near Vienna. They got a land and the area with deers, and they continue hunting deers till the First World War. Then the place moved to Poland. And from then on, the history of my family was broken because they couldn't hunt deer anymore. And they became very poor, and they live in a small shtetl in Poland near Krakow. And after the Second World War, just few of them survived and came to Israel. So this was a long, long story, but the beginning was not far from here.
Yeah, thank you for the geographic tour of various places that were important for your family history. There was always an anti-Semitic stereotype of the wandering Jew, right? Someone who is never established in one place, someone who is never loyal to a place, but is always constantly on the move. And was that ever something that you thought about, or something that people would talk about?
I don't want to move, but nobody give me another passport, so I have to. It's interesting. They stop me a lot in the pass control. I don't know if you know this, that according to the Schengen law, I have to count my days. I have a very limited days in all EU, and I have a lot of readings. So I have to count my days in Europe and then go back to Tel Aviv and then go back to Berlin. So whenever they stopped me, they tell me you have 10 more days to, and this period of time for your reading tools, whatever. And I said, but I'm used to walk from one place to another. I have to. And maybe it's in the genes that I feel that it's a wonderful solution. In case you don't have a final identity, you can have few identities. And it's very helpful because I cannot say that I'm really satisfied being in Israeli, especially in these days. But I feel that it's, in a way, difficult for me to be German as well. Swiss won't accept me, and I think that we are different by character. I'm very neurotic to be Swiss. Maybe being, a traveler in the world is a privilege for a writer.
Well, that brings me right to another passage from the book again, Who the Fuck is Kafka? This is an episode. It is the narrator's son's birthday, and they're looking to do something special to celebrate the boy's, I think, 12th birthday. And as they're going through all the things that they would like to do, they realize that there are also many limitations. This is an episode that the narrator is telling her panel at the Peace Conference. And that's why it starts with, ich wandte mich ans Publikum, aber vor allem an Nadim. Ich wollte, dass meine Situation verstand, unsere Situation. Vor 5 Jahren, auf dem Höhepunkt der zweiten Intifada, feierte mein Sohn seinen 12. Geburtstag. Ich stellte fest, dass er zuhörte und meine Stimme wurde fester. Er wollte ins Kino, essen gehen und an den Strand. Zu Ehren des festlichen Ereignisses nahm ich meinen Mut zusammen und wir zogen los. Erst gingen wir ins Kino. Wir saßen neben dem Ausgang, möglichst weit entfernt von einem Terroristen, der sich mitten im Saal in die Luft sprengen würde. Am liebsten hätten wir in der letzten Reihe gesessen, damit uns niemand ein Messer in den Rücken stoßen konnte, und nah am Gang, um notfalls zu fliehen. Als wir uns setzten, fiel mir auf, dass die beiden jungen Männer, die hinter uns saßen, Arabisch sprachen. Mit einem schnellen Blick nahm ich wahr, dass einer von ihnen eine große Tasche hatte, viel zu groß für meinen Geschmack. Ich befand mich in meinem eigenen Film. Ich stellte mir vor, wie unsere Glieder in alle Richtungen flogen. Ich erinnerte mich, dass der Effekt von Sprengladungen in geschlossenen Räumen um ein Vielfaches stärker war als unter freiem Himmel. Ich verkündete meinem geliebten Sohn, wir würden kein Risiko eingehen. Wir verließen den Saal bereits während der Werbung. Und nun ein Restaurant, tröstete ich ihn. Er war enttäuscht. Wir suchten eine beliebte Tel Aviver Pizzeria auf und während wir ausdiskutierten, welche Pizza besser sei, eine Pizza Margarita oder eine Pizza mit Pilzen, hörten wir in den Nachrichten von einer Explosion in einer Pizzeria in Jerusalem. Wir nehmen beide, eine Margarita und eine mit Pilzen, beschloss ich, und dann entscheiden wir unterwegs. Wir bezahlten für die beiden Pizzen und warteten nicht auf das Wechselgeld. Wir flohen. Draußen sah ich, dass nicht nur wir uns in Sicherheit gebracht hatten. Endlich kamen wir zum Strand und suchten uns einen Platz in einer Liegestuhlreihe nahe am Meer. Mein Sohn zog sich schnell aus und rannte zum Wasser. Ich sah, wie er zwischen den Wellen herumsprang, wie er die Arme hob und mir zuwinkte. Wenigstens ein bisschen Geburtstag, dachte ich und ließ mich in einen Liegestuhl fallen. Ich bitte um Aufmerksamkeit, es gibt einen verdächtigen Gegenstand. Ich wiederhole, einen verdächtigen Gegenstand, verkündete der Bademeister über die Lautsprecher. Alle Badegäste werden gebeten, den Strand sofort zu verlassen. Wir flohen auch von dort. Auf dem Heimweg schlug ich meinem enttäuschten Sohn vor, sich noch etwas zu wünschen. Ich war bereit, alles zu kaufen, was er wollte. Ach Mama, sagte er wütend, ich wünsche mir ein anderes Land. Yes, when talk about the hardships or the difficulties of living in Tel Aviv, the scene really...
It was on the days of the Intifada. And my son found another land. He left Israel and he found himself in Germany, which is an unbelievable vicious circle.
At the same time, when you read this passage, you can really understand how in Israel the need for security is very strong, right?
Yeah.
The fear that you must have when you're living there is real. Things happen every day, and in the society you do see people who are maimed and who have injuries due to some terrorist attack, one or another.
It's, if I may, it's deeper than that. I think that Israel is a wonderful mental hospital for post-traumatic people, because the people there gather together after wars, the Second World War, and then they have an ongoing situation that they are not secure. So they don't have an healing time. And you know, when you look at Israel, it's a kind of a laboratory. People there under threatened, they build up the identity of being victim. And by the way, being paranoid doesn't mean that they're right, at least in few of their arguments. And you know, whenever I think about my life, it's almost unbelievable. When I was 3 years old, I think that it's my first memory listening to a siren, being in my mother's arms, and she is running inside the apartment because then we had no shelter. And I have this vibration still in my body. When I was in elementary school, there was the Six-Day War, and few of friends, older friends in my neighborhood, I think it was 4 or 5, was killed in the war, and they were sons of Holocaust survivors. Then when I was in the army, I had the Yom Kippur War. I was a soldier myself. I was in the Golan Heights, and all of a sudden, 2 o'clock, Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day in the Jewish tradition. I look up, I saw airplanes, which I never saw before, and then all over fire, and 7 of my best friends died in the first attack of 73. Then I went to the university. I wanted to change my whole attitudes. I wanted to be an intellectual. And I fell in love with a wonderful guy who is my husband. And 82, he had to go to Lebanon war. So I just married, and I have to wait that my husband will be back. Then, when I had small children, we had the Gulf War, and we had another Lebanon war, and I had to sit with a gas mask in a shelter, in a shutz room, because every apartment in Israel has to have a shutz room with my children. And I was so crazy that I forced my husband to buy an apartment in America, because I remember the story of Kindertransport in the Second World War, when rich families could send their children to England to save their life. So I wanted to send my children. I cannot rely on Europe, so I wanted an apartment in Manhattan. And my husband understood that I'm so crazy, so during the Gulf War, we bought a small apartment in Manhattan. And then later on, when all those Gaza wars started, and our building was shaky from one side to another, I said to my husband, listen, Manhattan is very far. We should have an apartment in Berlin. And those are, I just try to to describe the mental sickness or fears or the deep, deep trauma. And then, not to say that my children were soldiers and I couldn't see them with uniforms. Not to say about the Intifada. My children in high school couldn't go to a movie, to a theater, to a restaurant. We were specialists for delivery and takeaway. So, and it's an ongoing situation. The biggest room we have now in our apartment is the Schutzraum, the shelter. And we have there gas mask and a chemical toilet, and I always have spare food. And in my apartment is a daughter of Holocaust survivor and is a very scary mother. Still, I have grandchildren. I have 3 fridges at home, 1 for everyday use, one for emergency, and the third one is in the shelter. So I am just an example. We live under a threat, and on one hand, it's an imaginary threat, but on the other hand, it's a concrete as well. And I think that, you think that we have prime ministers and president, whatever. We need a good psychiatrist to heal the wounds of the people and find solutions. And people are really, they live the fear that everybody hates the Jews and they are prone to be killed by somebody else. This is something very deep. It's always very difficult for me to share those experiences, but listen, my life is an ongoing story that refers to wars and to losing friends, family members. Just one short story. One of the journalists in Germany asked me about my father. And I told him I know nothing about my father. I know that he's a Holocaust survivor. He has no relatives. All of them were killed in the Holocaust. And he had tuberculosis. And I grew up just with my mom. He was in a sanatorium. He died when I was young. So he decided to make a research to give me more information about my father. It was 15 years ago, on the days of the fax. One day he called me and he said, Lizzie, you have a lot of relatives. I found all of them. And I said, wow, that's great. And he said, do you have a fax at home? I'll send you all the names. And I was sitting and there was a long pages. It was not the modern fax, the old version of the fax. And then the rollers went out, and then I read 894 names. All of them were killed in the Holocaust. And the last name was the name of my father, and it was written, probably he is the last survivor of this family, but we know nothing about him and what happened to him after the war. So think about a person sitting at home, and then I was indifferent, looking at the names that said nothing, don't know the connections, the relation, don't know if it's fake or a real name list. But those are really crazy experiences of people that are taking part in the story of wars. That's enough.
No, it's not. I could listen to you for hours more. The other side of life under constant security threats in Israel is, of course, the experiences of the Palestinians, which is that the security issues quickly can turn into life under suspicion. under constant suspicion. Here is another passage from Nadim, which I think is an interesting juxtaposition to what we have just heard from the narrator's son. Zu unserer nächsten Verabredung tauchte Nadim nicht auf. Nachdem ich eine Stunde lang auf ihn gewartet hatte, rief ich ihn an. Ob er überhaupt noch lebte? Vielleicht war das geschehen, wovor er Angst hatte. Meine Hand zitterte, als ich seine Nummer wählte. Tut mir leid, sagte er, und ich hörte seiner Stimme an, wie wütend er war. Was tut dir leid, dachte ich. Du lebst und du kommst nicht und du rufst nicht an? Diesen Satz behielt ich zum Glück für mich. Wieso ärgerst du dich? Fuhr er mich an. Also wirklich, stieß ich erstaunt aus. Er ließ mich nicht weiterreden. Es reicht, sagte er. Seine Reaktion verwirrte mich. Was ist passiert? Nichts. Man hörte ihm an, wie zornig er war. Aber das kommt wieder in Ordnung. Und was ist nicht in Ordnung? Mustafa ist zu Hause, deshalb konnte ich nicht kommen, antwortete er. Ist er krank? Fragte ich. Nein. Warum ist er dann zu Hause? Weil er nicht in die Schule gegangen ist. Warum nicht? Wegen seines Lineals. Wegen seines Lineals? Ja, vor 2 Tagen hat das Lineal beschlossen, aus Mustafas Schultasche zu lugen und deine Freunde zu erschrecken. Deshalb unterzogen sie ihn einer Sicherheitskontrolle. Natürlich fühlten sie sich veranlasst, den Ranzen auszukippen und den Jungen zu zwingen, sich auf offener Straße auszuziehen. Du lieber Gott, entfuhr es mir, und ich dachte, rennst du zur einen Seite, triffst du einen Bären, rennst du zur anderen, wirst du von einer Biene gestochen. Und hast du dich nicht beschwert? Nadim schwieg. Was ist, gibt es keine Polizei? Für mich nicht. Und falls es eine gibt, dann nur, um mich festzunehmen, fauchte er. Was wirst du also tun? Fragte ich beschämt. An einen Ort ziehen, an dem es bis heute keine Siedler gibt. Deine 50 Verrückten haben sich vermehrt und mein Haus zu einem unmöglichen Ort gemacht.
This is the andere Seite.
That's right. It's what's really moving about this book is that you're always switching from one side to the next. First, you're really touched by the trauma of the Holocaust survivors, and then you're very moved by the plight of the Palestinians, whose life is extremely difficult under the circumstances they're living in.
Right.
But your answer to this maybe is the next book, Sweet Occupation. Sweet Occupation follows Who the Fuck is Kafka? It's a second book on the topic of Israeli-Palestinian peace or coming together, dialogue, talking together. And this was also the book that inspired the course in Bern to break down walls. Do you want to say or should I?
Yes, no, I understand. I understand. I must say that it's in a way, I'm very connected to the book and to the Palestinian story, and I'm very active right now to, I don't know what for, but we are a group of Palestinian and Israeli that try to make a change. But what is interesting, and I have a kind of a guilt feeling that I was not really motivated to write the stories of others. I was really deep in my own story. But I was invited to Rome to a peace conference, and Nadim was a charmer, a very sexy guy, very funny guy. And I thought, we can make it together. We can write a book. He had a dream to be a director of a movie telling the story of a Jewish Israeli peace activist family. So the motivation came from outside in a way. And I had to pay a lot for Who the Fuck is Kafka, because from the moment I left the Israeli consensus telling the story of the Holocaust and second generation, nobody really wants to publish the book, and it's really difficult to find my other books in Israel as well. And I felt out, I felt that I left alone. But still, I felt that it's a right thing not just to take care and to dig in my history, but to give a helping hand to my neighbor. And one day I came to visit Nadim in Silwan. We are in a very near, close relation. And that was a very interesting situation. It's a very neglected, in a way, neighborhood, very narrow streets, pathway, not really streets. And it was around 5 o'clock, in between the end of the day and the beginning of the evening. And I'm not secure there in any case, so I walk very fast. And then somebody stopped me and he said, "Listen, are you Lizzie Doron?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "My name is Muhammad." And I was sure this will be the last day in my life. I looked at him. He's a very handsome guy. And he said, "I think I will be your next book." And I said, "Oh, mommy, I've met a crazy person." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Listen, I was a terrorist, and now I'm peace activist, and I am the leader of Combatants for Peace." I had no clue what he's saying, but the word terrorist was strong enough. And I said, "Whatever you want, Muhammad, you can get my phone number." And he said, "Listen, you know, we all know about you because we are following all the magazines in Europe. And we found that you wrote a wonderful book about my neighbor, and you got a very good critics, articles and reviews in Germany. And I will be your next story." And then I gave him my phone number, my email, and I was really sweating, and I gave a sprint, and in 1 minute I just opened the door of Nadim's house, and I said, "Nadim, do you know Muhammad Yaweda?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You know, I met him. He's a terrorist." And he said, "All the people around are terrorists. We fight for our freedom. You didn't get the point?" And I said, "He told me that he will be my next book." Nadim looked at me and said, "Good idea. Go for that." And that was the beginning of Sweet Occupation, in a way. And Muhammad became my editor. He was the one who pushed me. He arranged all the meetings. He brought all the stories. I just had to write down everything. And he was also a kind of advisor. And he decided when to publish the book. It was really very interesting. And it was an unbelievable experience because with him, I realized that I want to understand people that are ready to kill somebody else and to share with me the moment they stab someone or they felt that there is a value that is more important than the life of somebody else. And in this book, Muhammad and his friends really opened their heart and shared with me very intimate stories, and that was difficult to build friendship with them. It took me a lot of time to overcome guilt feeling, to accept the narration and the story of others, and to become very, very near, close friends. And I'm a specialist in loving my enemies. Because if I think about my life, and it's a joke in my family that now every Friday night, if we have guests, so half of the guests are Germans and half of are Palestinians. We have a lot of problems with our Israeli Jewish friends. So my husband called me a lover of your enemy.
Well, that's a really, really nice story to wrap up the evening. The book, speaking to your to the enemies, the idea was the point of departure for this course in Bern, where the students are asked to look for some event in their life, some taboo, some wall that they are supposed to break down. And the result, I'm very curious to see what it will be, is in the making at the moment.
It's something else which is very important. I think that civilian society has to raise the voice. It's not the leaders and it's not ideology. People has intuitively to feel the others, to be able to listen, not just to one story. That's what happened to me. I was busy with one story, the Jewish story. And while I was ready enough to listen to the stories of others, I feel that I'm totally a different man, woman, man, whatever. Now the gender is not an issue. But anyhow, I think that the main thing that whenever I come to give a seminar, I want to motivate young people to be much more active, because we are a generation that give everything to the young generation, and they can be zombies. It's a wonderful option. But I believe that this is very dangerous, and as a human being, you should break the walls, but also raise your voice.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect request to the audience. Raise your voice. Would you like to ask the one or the other question to
I can
Lizzie
answer
Doron?
without questions. She knows.
How about
well,
your students in Bern? How did they raise the voice?
I think that at the beginning it was difficult meeting me. And they said that because I'm talking about trauma and wars, and I bring very aggressive materials to the class. I work with gender, LGTB, black writers, women writers. I take all the breaking through via literature. And I put in the center writers that did something to reach a change, like Hans Palada, Sebastian Hafner, Eric Maria Remarque. I bring books that are not the best literature, but literature that try to make a change or bring other perspective. I will know better at the end of the course. For me, it's very important because it's also breaking the walls for me in front of people that had totally different experience. I had few emails which were really very moving, but still I have to work hard. It's not easy. I think that it's the most difficult seminar I ever experienced. I think because of the distance and the experience of the people. I think the easiest one is in Berlin because it's so international. So in Berlin, whenever I give a lecture in the university, I have just 1 or 2 German students. All the others are from the Middle East, America, Africa. So it's very easy to digest my materials. But for me, it's really a very challenging course. I love this breaking walls here in Bern.
My German is, my English is not so perfect, so I would like to change in German. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Gut, ja. Ich lese sehr, sehr viele Artikel. Ich war ja auch oft in Palästina, Israel. Ich lese sehr viel. Und was mich im Moment am schlimmsten ist für mich zu lesen, die Kinder, die in der Nacht aus den Betten geholt werden und in israelischen Gefängnissen sind und was es mit ihnen und der Familie macht. Das ist jetzt gerade ein Artikel, der jetzt gerade neu kam. Es ist eine schlimme Demütigung. Die Kinder müssen Papiere unterschreiben, sie hätten Steine unterschrieben. Der Lawyer, ich kenne Graf, der sagt, unterschreibt, sonst bleibt er noch ein halbes Jahr im Gefängnis.
Yeah.
Also es ist meine Frage. Sie wissen ja selber viel davon. Und ich möchte, wie gehen Sie damit um? Weil das betrifft ja die jetzige Generation, die kommende Generation. Dieser Schrecken, der da verbreitet wird.
You know, I cannot fight with everything. And in Israel, I think about the children in Gaza as well, and the children in the West Bank as well. And it's an ongoing situation which I don't see any solution. I don't know really how to handle this. And it's amazing that people are used to live under threats and fears. I can say that comparing to my generation, there is a better awareness, but it should be changed dramatically. And I don't see any solution right now. And I don't understand the families, at least from the Israeli side. In the Gaza side, they have no choice, that are really ready to stay and to live near the Gaza border. It's something that I cannot explain. It's not rational. I think that after my experience, after my personal trauma was this Yom Kippur War, when in one day, in 1 hour, I lose 7 of my friends, I will run away. But, you know, people see themselves as Israelis and they are devoting to the country and to the habits. Maybe it's, you know, something that you can get used to it. And then we'll see the result and the reaction of the children. It's horrible. It's really horrible.
But if they become to know each other, like it's told, es ist in der Friedensschule in Neve Shalom Ba'at Salam, bilden sie Tausende von Leuten aus, damit sie sich kennenlernen. Und
yes,
dann,
but how can you do it concretely? It's a dream. How can they meet each other? They are afraid of each other. Right now, most of the people in Israel want to kill all the Arabs in order to reach peace. It's not a question of right now. It's not working. Everybody believes that he has the rights to stay there. We have no leaders that will lead us to have any change. And people can do nothing. You cannot cross the border. And people are so afraid of each other. So you have to go into another psychological situation. It's another data.
I also talk in German, but isn't there another problem? People don't understand each other because the Israeli language is Hebrew, and the people in Palestine talk Arabic. And the law in Israel says that there is only one language, Hebrew. And I mean, if we compare with Switzerland, we also have a border to the French, well, not a real border, not in your sense. But I mean, if we couldn't talk to the people in the French part of Switzerland or the Italian part of Switzerland, we would be afraid of each other too. And in reality, this exists. In this summertime, I met in the Alps, I met a Swiss family living on the Alp. And I met tourists who passed there from the Swiss part of Switzerland. They couldn't talk to each other. And I mean, but all languages have the same place in our culture. And what does Israel do that people can understand each other? I mean, that's a basic to come out of fear.
I totally agree with you. But think about people with different DNA. I grew up with a bylaw in Israel that we are not allowed to speak German. For us, a language represents the demon. So it's not something that we created. Don't learn Arabic because this is the language of your enemy. It's something that goes with us and with the feeling that we are under danger. It's a question of life and death. We are in a totally different level, and we have an history. You know that when really people spoke German in the streets of Israel, Holocaust survivors got heart attack. It's loaded. It's not a language. It's the whole story of having an enemy. Think about demons. We don't see right now mainly the institution and government and people from the right wing in Israel. They are not open to learn the language of the enemy. They are learning to protect themselves and to occupy them and to be soldiers in order to win. But I must say something else. You know, my Palestinian friends, just those who were in the Israeli prison, speak Hebrew. They don't learn Hebrew in any case. And when they were looking for a publisher in any of the Arab countries to translate those books into Arabic, they were just refused because it was an Israeli writer. So the gaps now are so deep, and those are the stories, those are the voices of Palestinians. And they wanted so much to bring an image of an Israeli that supports them and to open their stories. Not in Lebanon, not in Jordan, not in Dubai. They tried in so many countries. They went with the books, with the reviews. So right now, just minorities are ready to listen to each other. They mainly use English as the language to communicate. And I must say that I'm really ashamed that I don't know Arabic. And Nadim, for example, he's under the Israeli occupation. He lives in East Jerusalem. He works in West Jerusalem. He knows just few words in Hebrew. I think that it represents, or it gives you the picture of the deep hatred and the gaps you cannot compare to any European countries. And you are right, when time will be changed, languages will be also in a different position.
I think it's very important to differentiate between the Israeli state, the Israeli people that can be Jewish or Arab or atheist, and or Palestinian, and also Jewish culture and Jewish religion on the one hand and Jewish culture on the other hand. And I feel that intellectuals like you in Israel would play a very important role to go back to the Jewish intellectual tradition. A tremendous number of German famous writers, Heine, just one of them, Marx, another one that was an economist, Mendelssohn. German culture is full of Jewish culture.
Right.
So I think it's first linguistically, I think it's important not to just say Jews, because Jews, when you say Jews, it's either the religion or the culture, and the culture is many things, and then there is the Israeli state, and then there are the Israeli people, which also can be Arabs.
Thank you.
I wish that it will work like that. But, you know, we changed the laws and we have priority for Jewish people in Israel. Things are changing in Israel. We were a state that were ready to accept everybody, but now we are focusing on the Jewish people. And the ultra-Orthodox and religious people became stronger. And there is a demographic change because they have a lot of children, the ultra-Orthodox, and they can influence via the political institutions and parties. And if I give my experience in the last years, so I cannot raise my voice in Israel. For the Israelis right now, they stop teaching my books in schools, even those about the Holocaust. I am, you know, with women it's very easy. I am a prostitute. I am a traitor. I am a collaborator. I have a love affair with Arabs. So right now, you know, it's not the era to fight from inside. Sebastian Haffner said when he had to leave Germany that there are times that writers and people that want to raise their voice should immigrate and should be in exile. And that's what I feel right now. Even I cannot compare the era. But right now I feel that I can do much more outside Israel, because in Israel I have no bine or no position to speak. I can tell you something which is very interesting. The book Sweet Occupation was one in Germany. It was in the list of the top 10 of the last year, and the German government and Goethe Institute gave the budget to translate the book into Hebrewish and to publish it in Israel, even though it was written in Hebrew, but they were sure that I, as a German writer, I wrote it. It was a mess. Anyhow, it got the budget, and just the translator, when she found the name of the writer, she said, "Are you crazy? She is Israeli. Probably she has the Israeli draft." But I had to follow the German text because of the rights of the publishing house. And so they translated the book into Hebrew. And in my neighborhood, a bookseller loved the book very much, and he put it in the window. I live near the university. I'm from Tel Aviv. I belong to the secular, liberal, open-minded, whatever you say, and we live in the same neighborhood, people like me. And the bookseller put it in the vitrina. And I just passed the street, and he ran out of the shop, and he said, "Lizzie, I have to tell you something. A guy just passed away, and he said to me, at night we'll come to break the window because you put the book of Lizzie Doron. She is a traitor." And he said, okay, I will call the police, but I will leave the book at the window. And he was the only bravest one to do because he knows me personally. So we are talking on days of a huge tension, of an unstable situation. We don't have a government. We have a corruption prime minister. We have election every 3 months. We are now in a very dark day, and we are wishing to have Hebrew and Arabic as main languages, and also going back to our history from the liberal and literature and philosophical point of view. But now it's not working like that.
Is there hope?
Wow. It depends on the people, not on the level of the politician. And I must tell you that if I take my family, we are lucky that we could move. My son has difficulties even to come to visit Israel. He's very successful. He's a puppeteer. He has a political puppet theater. He is working all over Europe. He feels that he belongs to Europe. My daughter is a medical doctor. She works with in rehab, in brain dysfunction, mainly with soldiers that got bullets in the brain, and she feels that she cannot leave those patients, so she's very devoted to them, but not to Israel. But mainly people like us are searching. Israel is the place that most of the people are searching for a second passport, which is not optimistic, to say the least. Israel will be changed, I believe, because the people are different. You see so many ultra-Orthodox, so many believers. The only Western city right now is Tel Aviv, which is isolated and totally different by mentality. But for me, Jerusalem, I cannot go to visit Jerusalem. Immediately when people recognize me, they throw stones and they just shout in the streets, traitor, collaborator. So we are now on the brink of a change, but I don't believe that people like me will concretely fight for their freedom. They will live for their freedom. But you can never know, you know, about the future. I can be a change in a minute. I don't know right now. Not clear.
Hopefully the young people will change.
But the young people are living. They don't want to fight anymore. And those who are coming to Israel are not secular. And those who are strong now are the settlers. So we have to wait to see the proportion of in the demographic picture.
There's one question still there in the back.
Meine Frage betrifft eben genau die jungen Leute, die Sie jetzt angesprochen haben. Sie haben ja vorhin sehr eindrücklich geschildert, wie die Angst eigentlich Ihnen tief in den Knochen sitzt oder gesessen ist. Schon mit 3 haben Sie Sirenen gehört und haben die Mutter gespürt und ihre Angst. Denken Sie, dass jetzt der israelische Staat investiert ja sehr stark in Sicherheit oder in das Gefühl von Sicherheit. Denken Sie, aber haben diese jungen Menschen immer noch so viele Ängste vor Terrorismus, vor Krieg? Oder ist wenigstens, keine Ahnung, man kann sich das nicht so gut vorstellen, wie das ist als junger Mensch, eben Ihre Generation oder jetzt die 20-Jährigen, haben die dieselben Themen, oder?
If the young people are afraid like the old?
The young people who hear the sirens, whether they still have the same fears as the old.
Yes. Listen, my daughter has a son, 2 sons. They are 3 years old. And in the last siren, and she's a medical doctor, she is a very tough woman. She told me that she is looking for relocation. She cannot think about her children becoming soldiers or growing under a trauma. Yes, it's an ongoing trauma. There is an opposite reaction, like we should be strong, we defeat the enemies, but this belongs to the ultra-Orthodox who believe that God sent them to the Holy Land and they will defeat the enemies, or the settlers, which has the ideology, and they are overcome in a way. It's a denial mechanism, at least from my point of view, and they will defeat the enemies. But people that are struggling for normality, they live under a trauma. My son is 32, and in the last war, 2 weeks ago, he was afraid to call us and to ask what's going on. He told me that even calling Israel and hearing the siren in the background, he cannot overcome it anymore. He was a soldier in the Intifada, and he has this post-traumatic syndrome. And I see it, you were asking about young children in Gaza. It's an atmosphere in Israel that we should be strong, we should defeat the enemies. And there are other voices, we should compromise, we should overcome the fear, we should know the enemy and build up totally a different relationship. But those people are the minority.
There is one more question here in the front.
You don't want to go home?
No. Okay, I remember when I was in Israel visiting my friends, my Jewish friends. It was totally different. It was the time of Yitzhak Rabin.
Wow.
And there were demonstrations in Tel Aviv of young people who wanted to have peace with the Palestinians. And I remember one evening they said, let's go and get really good food. And they drove me up to Jerusalem. And we went to an Arab restaurant in the old town. And they said, this is the food of the Middle East, the real good food. And it was so promising. Everybody was full of hope. And then Yitzhak Rabin was killed. And where have all those positive emotions and this idealism gone to?
I think that the people with the hope were shocked. After killing Rabin, we were in incubation time. And that was the option for the right wing to become stronger, and to the rabbi. And I think that it was a huge mistake of the left side that was under a shock, and those years made a huge change. And also, slowly but surely, there is a demographic change, which we were not aware of that. Listen, I have 2 children. One is out of Israel, other in Israel, and a friend of mine that we studied together in high school, and he became an ultra-Orthodox, has 12 children and hundreds grandchildren. So he defeated me. If you take it on a personal basis, you see that there is a huge demographic change. And also I believe that something happened in the Arab side. They are tired and they don't believe in their leaders, and in a way they are not active enough. And that is a problem as well. And if you have to look also to get a global picture. We were always under the influence of America, and we have Trump, a lover of Bibi Netanyahu. See the change in Poland, in Hungary, in Austria. So the change is, you know, the trend now is going right. So we are not alone. We have a lot of reason or stories to tell ourselves to justify what's going on in Israel. As I told you, it's a small country, it's a laboratory. So we are not alone in this change. And I think that a leader like Trump is a disaster. Is really, for us as Israeli, is a catastrophe. I like the words, it's better than mine. And he gives a lot of power to many American Jews who are coming to Israel and supporting the nationality way of living in Israel and excluded the Arabs. So we are not alone, we are not isolated.
Well,
Wir nehmen noch
Will you-
eine
are you up
letzte
for
Frage.
For one
No,
left?
no, I'm ready. I'm just.
Da hinten ist jemand, der noch keine Frage gestellt hat. Ich werde ihn und danach können Sie weiter noch diskutieren nach dem Anlass mit Lisi Doron.
Die Arbeitsplatzsicherheit spielt ja auch immer eine große Rolle. Wie steht es betreffend Forschung, Produktion der ganzen Militärhierarchie?
Job security situation, that plays an important role. What is the situation in Israel right now?
From the perspective of security.
Job
Jobs?
security.
Wunderbar. And that's one of the problems, because people don't feel any need to make change. The economical situation is one of the best ever. My husband is a businessman, so I have all the time to ask him why. And he said because many people are involved in security. We have a lot of high-tech entrepreneurs, very, very smart and talented and creative people. And we have also great science institutions, and it's unbelievable that under this tense and hatred and a lot of wars, the creativity and the economical situation is very good, and even more. And people, that's the reason, you cannot just give the bad side of Israel. I think that what holds the Israelis and what can explain the support in our corrupted prime minister is the economical situation. And people in Israel, mainly in big cities, have a very good quality of life. If you come to visit Tel Aviv, you feel that you are in Manhattan, you are in Berlin, you have sun, you have beach, you have happy people. There are a lot of layers of the story. It's not a clear cut. In everyday life, in Jerusalem, you can feel the hatred, the poverty. You can feel that God is also a tenant in Jerusalem. But when you are in Tel Aviv, you feel in paradise. And it's also a problem because the differences are huge, but in general, the quality of life is good. I don't like to compare, but I just finished a book written by Sebastian Hafner, The Meaning of Hitler. I don't know how many read this book. And there he said that he has to say two good things on fascism and of the leadership, if it was a leadership of Hitler. One, that he made a basic change of women liberation because he needed them to be in the army and everywhere, so he gave a lot of jobs to women. And the second thing, that for 10 years, with no explanation, the economical situation was very good in Germany. And this is the chance of fascist leader to control his people. And I think that one of our problems is that we have a very good economical situation. No need to go to the streets and to have demonstrations.
Lizzie, thank you so
Very
very
optimistic.
much.
At least I can speak with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you and thank you.
Vielleicht noch ein Dank
Thank
an
you,
die
Stephanie.
Übersetzer.
Yeah.
Ja, vielen Dank Ihnen allen für die Wortmeldungen. Vielen Dank an die Übersetzung. Thanks a lot to both of you for this interesting
Thank you.
talk. And I'm sure you'll be around a little bit if there are more questions.
Sure. I can
Good.
talk 24 hours.
So here's a little thank you from us, our gingerbread,
Oh, I like
especially
it.
for Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Ja, vielen Dank Ihnen fürs Kommen. Die Buchhandlung Zeitglocke hat unten einen Büchertisch aufgebaut mit unter anderem den 2 Werken Who the Fuck is Kaffa und Sweet Occupation. Wer da noch mehr darin lesen möchte oder auch die anderen Bücher von Lizzie Doron lesen möchte. Wer über unser Programm
Thank you, my
informiert
dear.
werden möchte, schreibt sich am besten für den Newsletter ein. Wir haben nächste Woche 2 weitere Veranstaltungen, eine im Rahmen der Ausstellung, das Swiss Prison Photo Project, und zwar geht es um Gesundheit im Gefängnis. Und dann, das am 3. Oktober und am 4. Oktober findet eine Veranstaltung statt über... Entschuldigung, ja, jetzt bin ich verwirrt, merci. Genau, es ist schon Ende Jahr, genau, 3. Dezember und 4. Dezember. Staatskrise durch Schweizer Kredite zusammen mit dem Rechercheteam Reflekt und den Zusammenhang mit Krediten aus der Schweiz oder vielleicht auch nicht in Mosambik und der dadurch verursachten Staatskrise. Vielen Dank fürs Kommen.
Danke.